All right, hello everybody. Welcome to my presentation about the bound valuation. My name is Ting. So before we start, I'd like to introduce the basic concepts of like what is the time value of the money. So it means that the money today is worth more than the money in the future because it can be invested to earn interest. And this concept is a key bond valuation since the bonds pay the interest over time and return per value at a maturity. So to find a bond's market price, these future payments are discounted to their present value based on the current interest rates. So if the interest rates rise, the bond prices fall, and if the interest rates drop, the bond prices raise because never bonds offer different returns. And the key bond terms include the per value, which is the amount of the rapid at the maturity, and which is also the time until the bond expires, and the per value is a payback. And the market price, which influences based on the interest rates and economic conditions. In the longer term bonds are more sensitive to interest rate changes than the shorter term bonds. All right, so based on the case, so which bond will trade at a higher price? Between the bond A, which is a 30-year maturity, and the bond B, which is a 5-year maturity, the bond D will trade at a higher price because it has a shorter time to maturity and is less sensitive to interest rate changes. And even though both bonds have the same coupon rates and a credit rating, their prices react differently to market conditions, and the longer-term bonds, like the bond A, carry more interest rate risk, meaning their prices influence more when interest rate changes. The investor prefer the shorter-term bonds like bond B because they mature sooner, reducing the uncertainty of the future interest rate movements. So to compensate for this higher risk, bond A must trade at a lower price to offer the investors a higher return. So what happens if the interest rate goes up? Um, the bond prices and interest rates move in opposite directions, and when interest rates raise, new bonds pay higher interest, and making existing bonds with lower rates less desirable. And as a result, their prices drop. Both the 30 years one, and the bond B, like the 5-year one, will lose their value, but bond A's price will drop more because longer term bonds are more sensitive to interest rate changes. And for example, if both bonds have a 5% the coupon rates and the market interest rates increase from the 5% to 7%, and bond A's price will decrease more significantly than bond B's, as shown by the present value of the annuity formula, which accounts for the impact of higher discount rates over the time. The next one, we're gonna talk about which one has a greater percentage price change. So, like we talk about, like the bond A's price will drop more than the bond B because the longer term bonds react more to interest rate changes. And when the rates goes up, the investors prefer new bonds with a higher returns, making the older bonds less valuable. And since bond A has more years of fixed lower payments, the price falls more comparable to bond B, which matures sooner and is less affected by the interest rate shifts. With Okay, the next one, we're going to talk about the investment strategy in the economic slowdown. There are two strategies. The first one is to buy long-term bonds. Second one is invest in higher credit quality bonds to reduce the risk. And during an economic slowdown, interest rates usually drops because the central banks lower them to stimulate growth. A strategy is to buy long-term bonds like a bond A, since falling interest rates will make their prices goes up, and it is also wise to invest in higher quality bonds to minimize the risk during the certain times. So here's a reference, and thank you.